Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. Today's topic is Managing Your Grant as Systems, a guide for grant management success, and will be presented by Eric James from Minnesota State University, Mankato. Now, let me tell you about today's presenter. Eric James, professor of integrated engineering, has been in research administration and regulatory compliance for over 25 years. He has presented for the National Council of University Research Administrators and Society of Research Administrators International, and is currently active in the area of complex adaptive systems, systems design and management, engineering education research, economic development, and project management.
This session is really about changing and expanding your perspective and giving you some new viewpoints and sources and tools to manage your grant. I've broken it apart into three key learning objectives: to identify some key management stakeholders for your grant success, to compare multifaceted strategies for approaching grant management, and helping to define a strategic, operational, and tactical plan or viewpoint for grant management. We're going to look at 3 steps for shifting your perspective, and I've broken those down into these 3 questions. The first question is, who are the people needed to help you achieve the goals of your grant successfully? Well, obviously, you'll think of yourself, the researcher, or yourself, the grants administrator. Keep in mind, as a grants administrator, that your job doesn't exist unless the researcher continues to succeed in managing their grant successfully. Some other members of the research team are probably other faculty members in the same department or other departments at the university. Maybe not. Could be postdocs reporting to the researcher, could be grad students or undergraduate students, or could be the research staff that are either embedded within the research unit for the researcher or are within sponsored programs or research administration in an external bubble. So we're going to look at our grant as a type of an open system. And why is it an open system? Well, it has boundaries to it that fluctuate all the time. You might have to connect out to the library, but you might not have to do it all the time. You might have to go outside to the program officer, but you don't have to do that every day. So those are boundaries that fluctuate over time, which is one of the characteristics of an open system. Another one is that the components are specific to each grant, though they may reoccur. The things that you develop as tools and the systems that you develop as tools are going to help you solve your grant that you're trying to manage. But there are other grants that you may have and or be participating in management in. So these components are useful for your grant, and you may be able to reuse them, and so they may reoccur. This is another hallmark of an open system. As we mentioned before, there's inputs and outputs flowing between your system and the exterior systems you're interacting with. Your deadlines do not necessarily overlap each other. You might have university deadlines and you might have grant deadlines. A most common one of those is fiscal years, not overlapping. A university fiscal year might start July 1st. A state fiscal year might start January 1st. A company fiscal year might start October 1st. They all vary. None of them is better than the other, but they're not necessarily required to overlap. So when you're dealing with reporting systems and other things, you have to be aware where there is overlap and when there is not. And another hallmark of an open system is that our subsystems change unpredictably. They could change randomly, they could change seldom, or they can change all the time. And it's really hard to determine when something's going to change. A good example of this is how we manage things and how we communicate changed significantly when COVID arrived. A lot of folks may be working from home now for parts of their work and having meetings in Zoom or Teams or some other online media. So these are hallmarks of our system that have changed and could possibly continue to change. As we continue along, let's go back to hiring a research professional and dig a little bit deeper. What you might encounter when you're trying to do this, what are the risks? Well, is there already a position like this created in your university? If you're in a larger university, chances are that's the case. If you're at a small university, and by small university, I mean one that's $20 million in research or less, it may not have occurred yet. They might not have a non-faculty position for someone who, for a position that requires a terminal degree and years of experience to work as a scientist or other professional within your organization. In this case, you might be hiring a Latin translator if you're in the humanities, and I go back to that again. So is there a position created where I can hire a Latin professional or someone who's, in this case, our bioengineering researcher? If not, how much lead time do they need to create a position? You would be surprised at this. In small universities, I've been involved with this 3 times. The first time, it took 14 months to create a position. The second time, it took 12 months. And the third time, it took 18 months. And there are many factors that can lead to this taking so long. The first is most human resources systems develop their career ladders and their bands by assigning points to skills and knowledge and experience. And some of that goes into when you're dealing with a non-faculty position, the faculty parts of it that make it to that level of salary disappear because you don't have the teaching and other expectations to it. You're solely doing the one part. And so it might be difficult to do in that case. Another thing that might come up is there might be union restrictions. I mentioned specifically that in this case, we would be looking at creating a position that did not have any teaching responsibilities, but could possibly be mentoring. And if it was teaching, it would be a de minimis amount of teaching. That could be how your university's union defines a particular classification of positions. So keep all of that in mind. Do you need to learn all this information yourself? Absolutely not. What you do need to do is to find someone who has this information and build a relationship with them by starting to communicate and explain what it is that you're going to need and why it's going to be important. And start to look at that as you go along. Not everyone has experience with the human resource systems. So you need someone who's a subject matter expert to help you out in this case. They're going to need information from you, and you have to be ready to provide those. Like, why are you looking for someone who has 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience? What sort of background do they need to have, et cetera, et cetera. One of the overall, our key to successful grant management is that understanding, looking beyond your borders to where you're interacting with other systems and how can you prepare information to feed into that system, as well as get the requisite information out of that system that you need in order to make the grant management successful. A huge part of that is being able to make connections with people in other systems who can help you succeed. Get to know some of the folks in your human resources office. Get to know some of the folks in your finance office who process purchase orders. You may need to purchase something that you've already been getting from a particular supplier and you have a contract with, but that supplier is no longer able to get them because of supply chain issues. So you found an alternate supplier who's locally based and you can use them, but they don't have the contract. So you have to go outside of the contract. That's a conundrum that you're going to need the finance office to be able to help you solve. But it's something that you're going to have to figure out. There are always opportunities in this to lead and manage and to improve your skills in those areas. And I encourage you to think about those and do some information hunting. If you're thinking about something that might be a risk and you need to know more information, look to your phone a friend network. Look to the other faculty members at your university. They know a lot of stuff about a lot of different things. They may be able to help you out. Look to the offices that support you. They definitely know a lot of things and are there to help you out. And last, keep in mind the anticipate, prepare, execute model, the Kangas model. It's really very useful for a number of different things, especially when you're trying to manage something that as it's developing into a larger accomplishment.
I invite you to review our content offerings regularly as we are continually adding new courses and webinars in various areas of research, ethics, compliance, and professional development throughout the year.